It's time for Ogre School. Let's get started.
Today's video is sponsored by the new service, InstaWin. Find out more at the end of the video. Okay, so today we are talking about evidence and specifically what kind of evidence you should use in your writing. When you make a claim, the next step is to support that claim with some kind of evidence. I'm sure that seems easy and obvious, but in my experience, this is where some students really start to struggle. This can happen because they don't have a lot of applicable knowledge or because they don't know that they can use the knowledge they already have. All claims need evidence, but depending on the type of writing we are doing, that evidence can come from different places. In this class, there are two main types of writing you'll be asked to do. Both require evidence, but how that evidence works can be a little different. Let's talk about analysis first. This is where we read a passage and make claims about an author's rhetorical choices. Since your claim is about the choices the author made, then the evidence needs to be examples of the author making those choices. In other words, your evidence will be found in the passage. You will usually use a quote. Here, let's start with a short text. If your claim is that the author is trying to connect with their audience, then your quote would be the words they use to try to connect with the audience. Or, if you claim that an author is trying to inspire an audience, then your quote could be the part that is meant to be inspirational. Or, if you are claiming that the author wants to scare the audience so they feel compelled to act, then the quote will be the scary part. And so on. I've done an entire video on how to use these quotes in a sentence, and there's a link down below if you're watching on YouTube. However, when you're writing about your own opinion, it can be more difficult to know what kinds of evidence to use. Let's start by talking about what that evidence is doing. First, it is supporting your opinion and giving people a reason to actually consider your ideas and change their own mind. Consider the following. Not very likely, right? You are going to have to provide some form of evidence. Secondly, evidence leads to your credibility. In other words, the more you are able to provide logical and appropriate evidence, the more you seem like someone who knows what they are really talking about and someone who should be listened to. Therefore, if you provide very little evidence, or if you get parts of your evidence wrong, like, for example, claiming that the pandemic in 1917 ended a war that started in 1939, or if you claim that you have visited 57 states. Even if these are slips of the tongue, they give people a reason to doubt or ignore you because they hurt your credibility. Your credibility can also be hurt if your evidence seems inappropriate to the topic. Imagine watching a presidential debate and one candidate makes a claim about international relations and how to get along with other nations and then uses the plot of a SpongeBob episode as evidence. That would seem weird and inappropriate to the topic. So, what makes good evidence? In a perfect world, the evidence is factual, specific, sourced, and universal. Factual means it should be true, not made up. Specific means that you need details. Sourced means that you identify where the evidence comes from. Universal means that it is not something specific to you, but that it could apply to many people. Your evidence will rarely be perfect, but try to be as close as possible. To give you some idea of where you can find your evidence, I found this old clip from when I was trying to start a Twitch streaming career. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to #OgreStream. Today I have a special treat for you. This feature was requested by literally ones of people, and yes, that person was me, but still, you are going to love it. That's a #Ogre guarantee. Oh. Today, folks, we are talking about using evidence to support your claims, and since there are so many options, today I am providing a tier list. That's right, I'm ranking some of the most commonly used forms of evidence. So yeah, let's get right to it. One thing I see people try to do to defend an idea is by saying, that's just my opinion. Guys, that is some absolutely F tier evidence right there. Don't get me wrong. You are 100% welcome to your opinions, but they are claims, not evidence. You need something actual, something factual for support. Another popular thing people try to do is to use personal experience as evidence. At first, that may seem very similar, but a personal experience is an actual thing that happened. It is specific, and it can be used as evidence. I'm throwing that into C tier. It is usable as evidence, and sometimes it is very strong evidence, but I can't place it any higher than C tier because, since it is personal, other people, your audience, may not know about it, may not care about it, or might possibly believe you are making it up. So even though personal experience can be very powerful, you need to be careful with it. So if the drawback of personal experience is too specific to you, what about things you see on the news and big events in the country or the world? You know, big specific things that are happening now and that most people would be familiar with. That's great stuff. That's great stuff. That is solid A tier right there. Do that. Do it a lot. Of course, some people hear me say to talk about big, well-known things, and then I start reading a bunch of essays using information about celebrities who hate each other or the drama of some Instagram influencer. That's not great. For the sort of writing in this class, that just isn't important or significant enough, so I'm putting this into D tier. Don't use it unless you absolutely need to, or it is what you were asked about. Okay, moving on to historical trends. Imagine you could support a claim by pointing out that every time in history that we tried something, it failed. And you could point out a specific example. That's A tier evidence. Use that every time you get a chance. But what if you can't point to a trend? What if you can point to one specific event in history that supports your ideas? I'm actually going to divide that into two sets, major and minor. Major historic events are big, important, and well-known. Minor are either less significant or less well-known for some reason. I'm going to put the major ones one tier higher than minor because since they are more well-known, the audience can more quickly grasp your point and relate to it, and you have less explaining to do. Major to A tier, minor to B tier. Oh, whoa. Whoa. We have a donation. You know what that means. Everybody, chicken dance. Guys, that brings us to 5 lifetime donations. We are halfway to our goal. When I get to 10 donations, I will shave my head. That's right, I will go completely bald just for the pleasure of chat. Oh yeah, so where were we? Oh yeah, hypothetical examples. That's when you try to argue for something by talking about how it might or could lead to something. Or you say something like, what if? In other words, your evidence is not a fact or an event that actually happened. It is a prediction or a guess about what might happen. This is dangerous because if you say things might happen, I can just reply, also it might not. Hypotheticals are D tier. They can't be your only evidence. What about things that are happening locally, things in your state, or even your school? You know, local politics and events. They are actual and factual, but maybe not as well known as larger events. That's solid B tier right there. What about observations about the world? You know, when you say things like teenagers are constantly on their phones, or people seem to care mostly about themselves, or even bullying seems to happen everywhere. These can be useful, but they're not very specific. If they're one most people will agree with, they can be useful, but without specific facts, I can't put it higher than C tier. It is really a larger version of personal experience. Facts from science. Easy. A tier. Social science. Maybe information from AP psychology about how humans react to things, or maybe economics when you can talk about how large groups of people react. A tier. Notice how there is a lot in A and B tier. There are a lot of good choices. You can find quality evidence. All right, 2 left. What about some random video you saw on YouTube? Boo. F tier. Any random idiot can put something up on YouTube. Hi. And no, the world isn't flat, and Bush didn't do 9/11. Give those videos a miss. Last one. Cited facts from experts. That's the gold standard. It is basically an A tier item, but citing the source for that extra boost, you love to see it. S tier. All right, guys, that's a wrap. And don't forget to rep the hashtag Overstream to all your friends. And remember, we are just 5 donations away from seeing me shave my head. So probably sometime next year. See y'all. Peace. Another point. Once you have found good evidence, you will need to present it well. Your evidence should be specific and detailed. If you have a great piece of evidence but don't actually give details, 2 things happen. First, your evidence is less effective because you have not identified the details that support your point. And second, if you don't provide details, it makes it seem like you can't. This hurts your credibility. You sound like you heard someone else say that this was a good example, but you don't know why, but you want to sound smart by bringing it up. Or, you sound like when an adult wants to relate to you, so they say something random about TikTok because they assume you're into that and they heard about it once. Adults, am I right? They just don't get us young folk. All right, so these next two examples were written by students. Both of them use a major historical event, slavery in the US. However, the first one does a worse job of it. See the difference? The second one is far more specific and detailed, and as a result, it creates a better argument and presents the student as a more knowledgeable and thoughtful person. Okay, so here's the takeaway. You need evidence. Some types of evidence are better than others. Your evidence should be factual, universal, and hopefully sourced. And your evidence needs to be specific and detailed. I guess all that's left is to hear from our sponsor. Do you keep losing arguments simply because you are wrong? Does it bother you when other people win just by knowing more and actually backing their ideas up with facts? Don't you hate it when, after minutes of bickering, you agree to look something up and it turns out they were right all along? Well, have I got the solution for you. If you are subscribed to InstaWin, your phone will use its mic to spy on you at all times. And when it senses an argument, the live feed will be shunted to a human operator who will listen in on your argument and then quickly and skillfully edit the appropriate Wikipedia article to match your version of reality. The phone will buzz when the deed is done. That's your cue to say, why not just look it up and see that I am right? You literally have to do nothing except start pointless arguments, and you can win every time.
InstaWin saves all recordings for the worst possible uses. We have weekly meetings where we brainstorm more and more evil ways to abuse your data. We absolutely monitor everything you do on or near your phone, so please log into all your financial accounts now.